Welcome to Forum 360. I'm Sally Henning. Akron, Ohio is understandably proud of its law school. The Akron Law School has an outstanding record of achievement with first-year enrollment increases nearly 40% in recent years and demonstrated graduate accomplishments such as high bar passage and significant employment rates for recent graduates. So it is an honor to welcome to Forum 360 our special guest, Christopher C.J. Peters, who is the new Dean of the University of Akron School of Law. Welcome to Forum 360, Dean Peters.
Thank you so much for having me, Sally. I'm pleased and proud to be here.
Now, I want to tell our audience that you come to us from the University of Baltimore School of Law, where you taught and served as Associate Dean for Faculty Scholarship, and your teaching experience also includes service at a number of law schools. That school up north, Chicago, Loyola, Los Angeles, Toledo, and Wayne State. That was Michigan for the audience.
A lot of those are up north.
Dean Peters graduated cum laude from the University of Michigan Law School, for which we forgive him, where he was an associate editor of the Michigan Law Review. He earned his BA summa cum laude in history from the prestigious Amherst College. Dean Peters has written extensively, and he's the author, for example, of, quote, A Matter of Dispute, Morality, Democracy, and Law. And his writings have been published in the law reviews of Harvard, Columbia, Yale, UCLA, Oklahoma, BYU, and Northwestern. And in his spare time, he has come to us here in Akron. Welcome, Dean Peters.
Well, thanks so much for having me.
And for the benefit of our audience, I'm not going to ask you what A Matter of Dispute, Morality, Democracy, and Law is about, because it's probably over my poor little head.
It's right there in the title. Morality, Democracy, and Law. What more do you need to say?
And is that something that you tried to inculcate into the University of Akron program?
Well, the law is there already. Law is incredibly important to democracy, as you know. That's part of what the book is about. Morality, hopefully we're teaching that too in the form of legal ethics.
Well, so that just takes me to my first question, which is, what is the mission of the University of Akron School of Law as you see it now?
Sure.
What is your guiding? What are you trying to do?
Sure.
What's the big picture here?
Well, you know, the law school has been in existence for almost 100 years now. So the law school started in 1921 as the Akron Law School. It was a part-time evening school for working men and women.
Some people believe that's when I started at the law school.
No, I don't believe that at all. And I haven't been dean for quite that long. I've only been there for about 4.5 months. But the mission has pretty much stayed the same throughout that almost 100-year period now. So when the law school started, the mission was described as twofold. One was helping people essentially achieve their dreams of becoming lawyers or other professionals in the legal services industry. Back then it was just lawyers. Now we have some other options. And two was serving the community by training excellent ethical lawyers. And we still do both of those things, and those two joint missions are inherent in what we do today as well.
Now, you have other options for people going to law school besides becoming an attorney?
Absolutely.
Well,
first of all, a lot of people who get the JD, which is the basic law degree that allows you to sit for the bar and practice law, a lot of them end up not practicing law by choice. So we have many graduates, yourself among them, although we don't know. I haven't looked at your resume. You parsed through mine. I haven't looked at yours.
You'll get it today.
But right now you're not practicing law, I don't think. But we have many graduates who do other things with their law degrees.
Many judges have said that about me.
But we have people who are in the business realm, in government, policy making, nonprofits, who don't actually practice but use the skills that the law degree provides. So that's one way in which we have other options besides being a lawyer. But we also have other degrees. So now we've just started a program at the law school called the Master of Studies in Law degree.
Oh,
which
interesting.
It's a 30-credit master's degree, so it's a graduate degree, a post-baccalaureate degree. It doesn't entitle you to take the bar or practice law, but what it's designed for is working professionals in other fields. So it could be healthcare administration, human resources, technology, law enforcement, emergency management, any field that interacts substantially with law. So it would be helpful for somebody in that field to have some basic legal knowledge, some legal training, some idea of how the law works in that area, how the legal system works, but they don't need to actually practice law. That's what this degree is designed for. So it's a 30-credit degree, 1 year if you go full time. I think most of our students will probably do it part-time while they're working. And when you are finished with a degree, you have a master's degree, you have a credential, you have some training, which hopefully will help you to bring some legal knowledge to some non-legal fields. So that's just another example of kind of how we're expanding the universe of what's available at the law school.
It's a lot of flexibility. So
Yeah.
there's like joint programs like with master's degrees
That's right.
as well for business
Yeah,
people?
we have a number of joint programs. We have a couple of joint programs with the business school. We have a joint law and public policy program. These are programs that allow people to get a JD degree and, for instance, a master's of public administration degree or a master's of accounting and taxation degree. Normally that would take 3 years for the law degree plus 2 or 3 years for the master's degree. You can do it all in typically 4 years or less with some credits that are counted towards both degrees and so on. So it's kind of a flexible option for people who want to get the legal knowledge and also some accompanying knowledge and training in another field.
Well, a moment ago, not to quote back to you, but a moment ago you talked about the word resume.
Yeah.
And unlike, I have reviewed yours, and one of the unique things about your resume is how many things you've written and how much you've taught on so many different subjects. Mm-hmm. With this unique background, you come to the University of Akron Law School. What do you see as what's unique about our law school here?
Well, it's a great question, and I have taught at a lot of law schools around the country. One of the things that attracted me to Akron was the combination of affordability and outcomes. So we've got legal education generally, like higher education generally, the tuition has been climbing over the last couple of decades. And one of the challenges that we have is keeping things affordable for students. At Akron Law, we've managed to do that. So we have tuition and fees under $25,000 a year for both in-state and out-of-state residents, which is another thing that really attracted me here, is that we have, so we've always been a law school that is closely plugged into the Akron, Canton area legal community and the Northeast Ohio legal community generally, and that's still true. So about 50% of the practicing lawyers in Summit County are graduates of Akron Law, about 60% of the members of the Akron Bar Association are graduates of Akron Law. That's still true. But we also have this pipeline of students coming from other states, which really excited me when I came here.
It enriches the program.
It does, right. Geographically and in terms of just background and diversity in all sorts of ways. So we have about 25% of our JD student body now come from outside the state of Ohio. And that's facilitated by the fact that we have tuition for out-of-state students that is essentially the same as our in-state tuition. They pay a $100 annual surcharge, and that's it. So it's affordable.
What is the challenge? What are you doing to ensure that Akron Law remains affordable for in-state students and out-of-state students? There must be, and so many other law schools aren't doing that. How are you accomplishing that?
Well, I think everyone's trying to do it. It's a challenge all over the place. I think the main thing that we've been able to do is we've been able to be much more efficient in our operations than I think is the norm in law schools. So we have really, really good, really, really hardworking people on the faculty, administration, and staff who perform their jobs and provide services for our students very, very efficiently. So we've actually been able to cut costs administratively as compared to, I think, a lot of law schools out there.
It's a challenge.
It is a real challenge. We've been able to do it. On the other side of things, we have some very generous alumni and other supporters within the legal community who support student scholarships. So part of it is we're making how we do things more efficient and therefore less expensive, but we also need to give some opportunities for some students to come in and to do so with scholarship support to make it a little bit less expensive for them. And we have a lot of generous donors out there who've given financial support for scholarships, anything from a few $100, which helps tremendously, to an endowed scholarship, $25,000 or more, that spins off a certain income every year. We have a lot of those, and we're trying to get more of those, because that's a way that we can make it more affordable for our students.
If people in the community want to make an investment in the law school, they want to be involved, they want to help keep the law school affordable, who do they contact? How do they get involved?
Well, if you're interested in helping make the law school more affordable, for instance, with scholarship donations, you can contact me. My email address is cpeters1, all one word, cpeters1 @uakron.edu. You can contact our wonderful Alumni and Development Officer. Her name is Leah Evans. And her email is Leah Evans, LIAEVANS, all one word, @uakron.edu. Or you can just go on the website. If you go to alumni at the top, what'll come up, even if you're not an alumni, you can still go to alumni. And what'll come up is an opportunity for you to support the law school. A link you can click on. So there's lots of ways you can do that. Great and small, right? Every little bit helps. I mean, we have some relatively small scholarships in terms of dollar amounts that are focused on particular students that really help them. Maybe it'll help them buy their books for that semester, for instance, or pay some of the rent that they have to pay.
Which is not a small thing for a struggling student.
No, it's not. And law books are not cheap. When I was in law school, law books were not cheap. They've only become more expensive in the many decades that have passed since then. So,
well, when I was in law school, we were still writing on a slate.
Yeah,
no,
that was heavy to carry those around. I know.
So, what are the activities and priorities for the future for the law school?
Well, a number of things. We want to find ways to continue to make an Akron law education affordable for our students. So that's one thing, and that's continuing to find economies of scale, working with other parts of the university and other institutions of higher learning in the area to give more affordable options to the students. So for instance, we have a 3+3 program with the University of Akron, political science department, which allows students to complete both their BA in poli-sci and their law degree in 6 years instead of the usual 7. We have those with some of the other local schools as well, Walsh, Youngstown State, and a couple of others. So continuing to develop those economies of scale that'll allow us to make it a little less expensive for our students. I would say reaching more students in different ways, right? So the trends in legal education, and we're trying to be out in front of those trends, are you meet the students where they are. And that could be geographically or physically, where they're physically or geographically located. So we're developing more online programs, online content to reach students so that they don't always have to come into the law school for all of their course content. It could also be attracting students who otherwise might not have thought about law school or have been interested in law school. And the Master of Legal Studies program that I mentioned, or Master of Studies in Law program, is one way to do that.
So there's technology issues as well as outreach.
Oh, absolutely. Technology is a big part of it now. I mean, this is true across legal and higher education generally. We need to find ways to use technology to get to students.
Sure. You've been tuned into Forum 360. I'm Sally Henning, our special guest today from the University of Akron School of Law, Dean Peters. CJ, may I call you that?
You may, please do.
And we were just talking about technology. Is that one of the most exciting or surprising experiences, finding out the impact of technology, or what are some of the surprising and exciting things that you've had to encounter at the law school?
I wouldn't say I was surprised about the impact of technology. It's something that I knew, that's a trend that if you're watching legal education or higher education generally, it's moving in that way.
Or if you answer your emails.
If you answer, right, absolutely. It's way beyond emails now, Sally, I'll tell you. I mean, I'm pretty tech savvy, I think, for someone of my generation, but, it's way beyond emails. It's virtual classrooms. We have a brand new, this is my chance to plug our brand new facility. We have a newly renovated facility at the law school, really top to bottom renovation and some new construction.
State of the art.
Absolutely, and part of that is we have classrooms that are set up for distance education. So, I mean, they're live classrooms where you go and you sit and you hear the lecture, you interact with the professor and with your fellow students, but they're also set up to live stream the class to anyone anywhere who has a computer and an internet hookup. We have microphones on the tables that the students can click so that their voices can be heard. We have cameras that'll turn to that student as soon as they click the microphone so that people who are watching on the internet can see the student, hear what they're saying.
You have international joint programs?
Well, so we're
national-
developing some of those, yeah. So right now we have our president, actually, President Matthew Wilson, who's the president of the university, who is the former dean of the law school, whose shoes I'm trying desperately to fill.
And has appeared on the show.
And right, he has appeared on the show, and he's, when I say trying to fill his shoes, he's also tall, so he's got, it's hard to fill those shoes. But he actually teaches.
Excuse me, do you play basketball as well?
I do not. No,
okay.
no. I'm not
Important
even going to go
questions.
there. No.
I apologize.
I wouldn't even try. I do not have the kind of jump shot that President Wilson has. But President Wilson teaches a course where the students will interact with students in South Korea at a South Korean university and essentially engage in international negotiations and negotiating a deal with them. And we can only expand that now because we have the facilities and the technology to do that now. And the university is developing relationships with a number of institutions of higher education in Asia, in China, in South Korea, in Vietnam, in India. And I expect that we're already getting some students from those countries because we have a program that allows a student who has a law degree from another country already to come and get their US JD in 2 years instead of the usual 3. So we're starting to get some international students coming into the law school for that. And I expect that trickle will broaden into a steady flow over the next few years.
So are these things well above the curve for other law schools? Are how do you stay ahead of the envelope?
Yeah.
How do you stay ahead of the competition? Is it fair to call the other law schools competition?
Well, in some ways, yes, and in some ways, no. I mean, we work closely. I work closely with my fellow deans at other law schools. We work closely with other law schools, and I think that there is plenty of space, plenty of room for all of the law schools in Ohio. There's quite a few. There's 9 law schools in Ohio, okay? But there's plenty of room for all of us to coexist as long as we set ourselves apart in some way, and that's the key. It's not so much getting ahead of the competition for me as it is setting ourselves apart and making ourselves distinctive, so that what we offer at Akron Law is not exactly the same thing that is being offered up the road at Cleveland Marshall, for instance. And
excuse me, if there was one thing that people would take away from the show as to learning about why Akron Law School is distinct from other schools, what would that, if it's fair to ask about only one, but what would the one most important distinction be?
I would say it's hard to say just one. It really is. Honestly, I think I would say that I'm going to cheat a little bit here and say it's a combination of 2 intersecting things, right?
You're allowed.
Okay, one of them is our incredible relationship with the Northeast Ohio legal community, in particular Akron and Canton, but broader than that as well. I mean, that, and you asked what surprised me a few minutes ago, that the extent of the value and the importance of the law school to the local bench and bar, the local legal community, is something that absolutely did surprise me. I've never seen that kind of a close relationship before. So that's something I think we can offer our students that no other law school can offer. But that combines with something I also mentioned a few minutes ago, which is we really do have a non-Ohio presence now. We have roughly a quarter of our students coming from other schools, or from other states, and from other countries. And that's something that I think most of the public law schools in Ohio cannot say. And I think that's something that makes us distinctive. So we're really plugged into the local legal community. We can walk right downtown, our students can, and do their externships or their part-time jobs a couple of blocks from the law school. But we also have that diversity and that national scope now, and I think increasingly an international scope, because we're getting students who then become alumni who go back to Florida, Texas, California, Colorado, South Korea, wherever it may be, and expand our reach that way. So for me, that combination of things is something that's really unique about Akron. There are other things I could go on, but you asked for one, so I gave you kind of 1.5.
Do you think that's why there's such a high placement rate of students? Because the interaction with the local, the opportunity to have internships and be in the courtroom and work with law firms and go down to whether it's the federal courthouse or county or local?
I think that is a huge part of it. Honestly, I do. Because our students have the opportunity to interact with potential employers from before the time they arrive, really. Because we have potential employers, alumni often, who are talking to our students before they even get here to help us recruit those students. When they get to the law school, They interact with local lawyers and judges through guest lectureships. Many of them are adjunct professors. We bring them in to talk about their areas of practice. Just the other day, we had an event with a local bar group that brought in a number of local lawyers and judges to mingle with our students. And then they can just walk right downtown and have these externships or these part-time jobs or these clerkships with the local courts or with legal aid or with the law firms. I think that really does help.
Or just go watch a trial if they want to.
They could do that. Absolutely. They can do that. We have a great trial advocacy program,
yes,
which I would have put into that list of things that make us distinctive, but fortunately I have another chance to plug it.
And a moot court program, as I recall.
Absolutely. Our student skills programs are outstanding and nationally recognized, as is our intellectual property program, by the way, which is a good synergy with the STEM strength of our parent institution.
Sure, with the engineering and
yeah, engineering, polymers, science, mathematics, all of that stuff. It's a good synergy with our intellectual property program because these students, we can get students who traditionally might not think about law school, right? These are STEM students, they're engineering majors or they're science majors. And they get a degree and then they realize, hey, I can go to law school, I can specialize in intellectual property law, I can go out and do very well as a patent lawyer with my knowledge of, I'm not talking about me because I have no knowledge of science or engineering, but a student would say with his or her knowledge of science and engineering and a law degree, you can do very well out there in the marketplace with that combination.
Well, also, they can profoundly impact manufacturing companies with their intellectual property knowledge.
Oh, absolutely.
On two sides, not just the chemistry aspect or engineering science, but also with respect to employment law. If they are well versed in intellectual property, they can really shape the contracts in an effective way.
Absolutely.
And it just takes. Well, anyway, well, listen.
Yeah, we could go on and on.
We're rapidly running out of time, but is being the dean what you expected, and what's the toughest part? We've talked about the fun parts.
Sure.
What's the toughest part?
Well, being a dean is pretty much what I expected, but that doesn't mean it's easy. I would say the toughest part is, a big part of my job is planning for the future, laying the groundwork for, to push Akron law forward so that we're at the cutting edge of legal education 5, 10, 15 years down the road. And that's a changing landscape, and that's really fun but difficult. But balancing that part of the job with the day-to-day stuff that comes up, the fires that have to be put out, or as I say, the whack-a-mole game that you have to play as an administrator on a day-to-day basis, and sort of making sure that I move the ball forward. I'm going to mix my metaphors horribly here while still putting out those daily fires. That's the toughest challenge for me.
So tell me about the open houses. I know there's one November 18th, but tell me in general the philosophy of having open houses for students.
Absolutely. So what we do, we like to get prospective students in to our building to meet our faculty and our staff and other prospective students and our current students, because we find that when we do that, they really like what they see, and they're much more likely to want to come to Akron Law. So we have a number of events throughout the course of the year, admissions open houses and other kinds of events where the admissions open house, we just open our doors, we advertise it, and anyone who's potentially interested in law school or in Akron Law can come in during this 2-hour period. They can get a little bit of, they can meet faculty, meet current students, get some refreshments, get a little bit of a mock class going on. I think we do a little overview of what the application and LSAT process is all about.
LSAT, the testing that students
students
have to take that before they can get to law school. So
law school admissions test, absolutely. Sure. Introduce you to the process and get you into our building and let you see the surroundings and meet some people. The next one is November 18th, which is a Saturday in the afternoon. If you go on the website, click admissions, and it'll be right there.
And then I'm sure there'll be another one later in the year.
Yeah, we do a couple of them, 2 or 3 of them every semester, including we'll typically do 1 or 2 on the weekend, and we'll typically do 1 in the evening during the weekday for students who work on the weekends or are out of town on the weekends.
Well, speaking of students and coming to open houses to find out about law school, what other advice do you have for young people who might be interested in coming to law school, or their parents who might want to prepare them, or teachers who might want to guide them in that direction?
Sure. A lot of people think, well, if I want to go to law school, I have to major in political science or something like that, or government. Not true. really doesn't matter what your major is. What's more important,
Philosophy.
I think that's a great major for law school, right? But what's important is really that you take some courses that challenge you in certain ways. So you should take a couple of courses that force you, I say more than a couple, that force you to write papers, that require you to do some written work that then you'll get feedback on. There's going to be a lot of that in law school. You should take a few courses that require you to give oral presentations, where you stand up in front of a group of your peers or in front of a professor or something and give a presentation and get some feedback on that. A lot of that in law school.
Like speech classes or
Yeah.
that type of thing.
Anything like that, or a seminar where you have to present a paper or a project, something like that. You should take a course that forces you to think logically in an organized manner. So it could be logic, a logic course. It could be a computer programming course. It could be an English composition course. It could be I think a foreign language does that for you. If you take foreign language, you're forced to sort of think logically about how that language is structured.
So it's just being committed to doing something well, right?
Could be committed, absolutely. That's a big part of it, is commitment to pursue your goal. And if you go to law school, that goal's got to be getting that degree.
On behalf of Forum 360, it's been our special pleasure today to have Dean Peters from the University of Akron School of Law, someone who is pursuing his commitment to excellence. Thank you for being on Forum 360. I'm Sally Henning.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Sally.
Forum 360 is brought to you with support from Electric Impulse Communications, Kim and Harvey Nelson, Rubber City Radio Group, Akronist.com, Hudson Cable, Medical Mutual of Ohio, Forum 360 supporters, and the Shaw Jewish Community Center of Akron.